What is up? My name is Steve, and welcome to the channel. I just wanted to explain who I am, what this channel is all about, and how it can benefit you. So in this short video, we're going to be covering who I am, how who I am and my stories will help you if you want to become a salesperson, be better at sales, learn how to run a sales team, and if you would like to be a business owner, how to land your first high-ticket client, how to land more high-ticket clients, and how to start and build a sales team. And so I've accumulated a lot of lessons over the years, but the best place to start, born and raised in Ottawa, I'm still here. And so and the reason why my friend told me that I should communicate this story is because I don't have like a inherently successful story. And so a lot of the skills and traits and whatnot that are required for success, I've learned very recently. Like very recently. And so this is how I attune to the fact of like, when I say anybody can become successful, like anybody, like look at me. And like, nothing special kind of thing. And so I just wish to communicate that as my message. And so I'll give you a little bit of like context of, who I am, where I came from, etc. And so growing up, I was exposed to basically zero consequences. I had parents who did their best, 100%, and they supported me, loved me with everything that they had, honestly. Where I came from and how I was raised is that there was a lot of food and a lot of access to food, and food was very rewarding. And so I was exposed to, like, honestly, obesity at a very young age. And I would take trips to the hospital to get tests for being pre-diabetic once or twice a year. And I thought this was all normal. Like, I would talk to kids at at school, and I would be like, yeah, I had to do this diabetic test. And they're like, what? I was like, wait, you guys don't do that? Like, I just thought everybody did it. I thought it was like a check-in or a checkup that everybody went to. But it was until like the 8th grade that I realized, I was like, oh, like this is a problem. like I'm twice the size as everybody. And at that point, I had the worst attendance at school. I can't remember a single thing that I learned in all of school. Like, I don't remember a single lesson. I don't remember showing up. I don't remember anything. And, I'm sure a lot of people could say that, but like, I very vividly remember playing video games. And like, all I did was video games and eating, even as like a child. And so people will say, it's like, oh, you are who you are before the age of 10. And after that, you were only like, shut the fuck up. Like, if that was true, I'd still be playing video games and eating Cheetos. But turns out you can change. Anyway, so I thought all this was normal. I was like, everything that I do, like me skipping school to play video games, these other kids are fools for not doing that or whatever. And I had awful grades. And throughout all of school, never, like, people would say, it's like, Steve, you have so much potential, you just got to apply yourself. I was like, what does that even, like, I will apply myself to video games. And I just completely ignored it on all fronts. Very embarrassing, honestly, but I was a child. And so I got 1 year older, and I was exposed to a teacher who changed the entire course of direction of my life, in my opinion, as he introduced me to fitness. And so he very much like led by example, and like he was in great shape, and he had like great shoulders and like sick biceps. And I was like, fuck, I want to look like that. And he exposed us to like fitness class. And so I just like at that point started to become like really, really interested in fitness. And I was like super overweight, like really, really big kid. So through grade 8 and being exposed to, I'll just say Mr. H, to keep his name off of the internet. So he was an incredible influence in me learning about fitness, health, taking care of myself, honestly. And so through him showing me by example what it looks like to have a healthy and fit lifestyle, I really started to implement those habits. Like, I started to bring like salads to school and walking and like doing push-ups instead of like playing video games. And it was so rewarding at the time because like I started to feel better, have more energy. And I do remember like wanting to continue to participate in fitness. And how enjoyable it was to have like my lungs on fire when I was like in the 8th grade trying to keep up with everybody. And I was just so slow because I was like twice the size of every other kid. And so moving into high school, I really wanted to keep that like athletic passion. And so my first year of high school, I took 2 gym classes. Like I took in Canada, that's a thing. I took a gym class and a hockey class, and they were both basically like fitness classes. And in my first year of high school, I dropped like 50 pounds. Like I just looked like a totally different person. So it became part of what I did, but it wasn't like my full on identity. Or throughout high school, I should say. As I was still like, I got exposed to drugs and drinking and whatnot as high schoolers do. And I put a lot of weight back on in grade 10, and I had a really weird relationship. And through that, like a high school relationship rather than I was dating a girl in high school. Like that says what I needed to say. And through that, once again, I just super lacked integrity. I had no attendance. I was super inconsistent with showing up. I would skip school to play video games. I was exposed to fitness. Like I was eating better, or I was eating, more protein or whatever. And I was working out, but I wasn't really seeing any benefit because I was like also drinking, also smoking a bunch of weed, also skipping school, also staying up late to play video games. Also it was a net negative because all the bad things that I was doing were not keeping up with the good things that I were doing were being undone by the bad things that I continued to do. And so I started dating a girl who was way smarter than I was, and really bad call, honestly, but great for me because I just felt so useless. And I think she was had the second highest grades in school or something like that. And I had probably bottom 10%. I was in, I don't know how they do it in the States, but basically you have regular classes and then you have assisted classes. And I was in the assisted classes, just super useless and awful attendance and awful grades, really giving myself no opportunity for the future. And I was really weaving this path of this dude's not looking good, really, really not looking good. And then I started this relationship. She was way smarter than me. I was like, holy crap, maybe I should try at school and apply myself. These people keep saying it. And so I started to take my attendance more seriously and made an effort to go to school, which I know, crazy sentence. And it was through a lot of resistance, through my family wanting to keep me home and keep me comfortable, play video games, whatever. But through fighting that resistance and that comfort, I was able to make a better attendance, improve my grades. And then it was my 11th grade teacher who has probably there's 2 people who have really impacted the direction in which I go. Well, 3, I guess. And one of my 11th grade teachers, probably without her, I have no idea where I would be. And so also Mrs. H. And so once again, just to keep her name off of the internet, I will not share it. But Mrs. H honestly taught me about critical thinking and having to ask questions and really what is thinking. And loaded question for an 11th grader, but man, oh man, did I ever need it. And so the position that I was in at that point of being able to have a teacher look at me, see more potential, speak into that potential, and really just think of okay, well, this is a student who has a chance. They have not had any rules or any consequences. And she saw this spiral, and I was actually suspended while I was in her classes for smoking weed on a field trip. True story. And I remember the amount of shame I experienced walking into her classroom after the suspension. And she just didn't address it. And she just continued to teach me and continued to support me and continued to encourage me to think. And I get emotional thinking about this because without her, I have no idea what would have occurred for the rest of my life. Is being able to reflect and think and apply yourself, that was very much influenced by Mrs. H. And so really cool. In terms of people who have influenced me the most, we've already talked about 2. I'll talk about a couple more, but very, very just straight up grateful for this exposure because that was the path I was going down was drugs, video games, drinking, probably gambling, no integrity, complete useless person to society. Terrible. Not good. So really turned it around the next year as I brought my grades back up. And the nice thing was when you're doing drugs and you're also and you're also starting to get smart, you have a lot of hands in a lot of different social groups in the school. And so I was actually elected to be on the student council. Really funny, because I was like useless all of high school, and then like just turned it on because of Mrs. H and because of my girlfriend at the time. I really just like can tried and turned it around. And that really set the course for like a lot better life. So throughout this, you know, the exposure that I had to fitness and then my exposure to critical thinking really turned into, and I remember so vividly, one thing that one of my teachers said, or that Mrs. H said to me, she said, "Steve, you're an excellent teacher." Like I was communicating with somebody else in the classroom and I was showing them exactly like how to do an assignment. And she was like, "Steve, you're an excellent teacher. Like you should consider teaching." I was like, shit, well, I don't really like teaching school stuff because I'm not good at school stuff, but I really like working out and I really like teaching. And it was like that where I was like, I'm going to be a personal trainer. And I just, that was my whole plan for the rest of my life was personal train. And well, my actual plan was to be a firefighter and then personal train on the side. And, but yeah, hard to be a firefighter when you have no integrity, just saying. So in changing that, I really pursued exercise as like a profession. And the second that I graduated high school, I drove to the nearest gym. And true story, I drove to the nearest gym and I sent out resumes. I was like, hey, I really want to work here. And so one of them, two of them actually within the first week got back to me. One of them was a karate studio that I ended up coaching like 2 classes a week. And then another one, great job, honestly, for an 18-year-old. It was like a gym supervisor. The hours were 7 till 2. And so I just went into the gym, turned on the lights, and then I ran a lunchtime class. And I was able to like work out, monitor the gym. I was kind of like an on-call personal trainer. And as I was doing that, so I worked at those 2 gyms, and then I was shadowing as a CrossFit coach because like CrossFit was my passion. So when I broke my leg in the 12th grade, I started to like fall into like CrossFit videos, and I got really excited about like, oh, CrossFit style workouts. And so I remember doing like a bunch of push-ups and stuff just to like start to learn CrossFit because I found it super exciting. And so once my leg was recovered enough, I joined a CrossFit gym. And I remember the first workout, once again, like being the fat guy who like got lapped, just like couldn't figure it out, and started to walk on like a 100-meter run type thing. And I just remember being at 0 again and just being like, wow, broken leg, here we go. Like time to go from 0 to 1 again. And in doing that and really falling in love with CrossFit, I got certified through CrossFit, and then I became a full-on CrossFit coach. Like I was coaching morning classes, I was running personal training, I had like a couple extra things on the side, but like my primary focus was to be a CrossFit athlete. And then I was making like 40 grand a year doing personal training and CrossFit type things just to continue to be a CrossFit athlete. And then, so that was like my whole purpose for like 4 years was just to get really, really good at CrossFit. So this comes back to like how integrity is not it's not a trait, it's a skill because it's like ever evolving. This was the point in which I had to learn the most amount of integrity is I so badly was getting rewarded for like the outcomes and people telling me how much fitter I'm getting, how much better I'm getting, etc. And the way that CrossFit works is there's an inherent leaderboard. And I was getting so much praise for it that I started to lie and I started to like cut reps and cheat and just say like, oh yeah, I got this, or I went this fast, when in like reality, it was not even kind of close. And I just kept getting away with it, so I kept doing it. And where it got really tricky was because I said that I was really wanting to be an athlete, and then I would do all these things, cut all these corners, cheat basically, and then obviously not get the result of going to the next stage or whatever. And so like the hardest punishment that I received is like, oh, I'm just cheating myself. Like nobody else cares. It's just like, I'm doing this for me. And so I really started to find of like, oh, I get it. And so after like years of just doing the same pattern and like the same thing of like having no integrity and like lying on the leaderboard so that I could like have a better score or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. It like took like 3 years. And so it's like, I think back to this, I'm like, dude, you suck. Like, and like in thinking objectively about the life and like how I was raised for the first like 20 years of my life, like it makes sense, but it's also just like, I had so a coach, basically my boss at the time, he would have conversations with me like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you say you want this, you're not doing it. Like, what's going on? And if I was in his shoes, I would have fired me well before he did. And it got to the point that we ended up having to part ways because I was like, dude, like, I don't like working here. You think I'm cheating, which, like, you're right, obviously. But, like, I wasn't ready to, like, accept it. And so, anyway, so in exposure to that and in exposure to just not getting the outcome that I wanted from the lack of work that I was doing, obviously, like, what a sentence, I realized that, like, oh, okay, like, even if I did all the work, I'm not going to get nearly the result that I want because, like, at the top echelon of this, like, it's like the reward that I seek is just approval from other people. So I cared a lot less about that. And then I moved into weightlifting. And so I was very, very good at weightlifting. I had like a 335 pound snatch, and I was terrible at the clean and jerk, but I really wanted to get better at it. And so for my weight class, like, the snatch was super competitive. The clean and jerk was terrible. And I was, like, really passionate about wanting to get better at athletics and wanting to compete athletically. As I started to develop my business, and then, like, 2 months, maybe even, no, it was a little bit longer. It was like 6 months into, like, training for Olympic weightlifting, I tore my shoulder. And had I kept pace with the training, and I actually had, like, a great coach. He's a American national record holder. Dude's a stud. And, you know, we would have a great time together, and, like, he would coach me. He was super supportive and, like, really, really wanted me to hit goals and do better. Or lift more weights. When I say do better, he saw the potential, similar to, like, how other people in my life have, like, seen potential in me, and they're just like, they see something that you cannot see, and it's really impactful and useful. And so he actually encouraged me to continue to grow through weightlifting. And then I tore my shoulder. I was like, I was bummed. I was definitely upset about it, but, like, I didn't let it stop me, and it really just gave me the opportunity to, like, cut 15 hours a week of training into, like, 5 hours a week of, like, maintenance, and really, really just focus on business. And so that was when I really went full time into personal training. And I was working, like, 14 hours a day in just personal training. I scaled that business up to, like, 250 grand. I moved some of the business online to, like, nutrition coaching. And I was doing, like, $250,000 at, like, 22. And that was when I, like, really, really just fell in love with, like, business of, like, coaching, teaching, etc. And so I was doing, like, 25 grand a month. January 2020, February 2020, I did, like, 30 grand. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm doing great. March 2020, COVID. Steve-O. Really difficult because I had I just moved some of my coaching online, and, you know, I had a full client roster. Like, I was coaching 10 hours a day. I was making 100% profit because I did it out of my house. And, it was really tough because, like, the entire world shut down, and I obviously had, like, you know, 70-year-olds who were like, Steve, I can't come to your house to work out. Like, the risk is too high for me. I was like, of course. So yeah, that was unfortunate. And it took me about 2 weeks to pivot everything online. And then I launched the online weight loss offer. I ended up scaling that to, like, 3.2 million over the course of a year. And I just, like, made no money, no profit. I was spending a ton of money on ads. I was spending a ton of money I was actually using a software that, like, I paid per appointment. And I was charging just enough to cover the pay per the appointment, the fulfillment cost, and then the ad spend. And so I was making, like, very little per sale. And I realized this. And so I was like, oh, well, on the back end of, like, after they buy, I'm just going to sell them supplements to, like, make some more money there. And so I had the coaches, like, go in, sell supplements, and I realized the profit margins on supplements were, like, 10%. And so I scaled the supplement offer to, like, 600 grand in the first year. Once again, made, like, no profit. And after just, like, going through this loop of, like, spending a ton of money and making none of it and working so many hours a day, like, for 6 months, I had my calendar open from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. for sales calls. And I would triple book each slot, and they were 30-minute calls. And I did it 6 days a week. And I just got really, really good at selling weight loss. And over the phone too. Like, I've done like 10 in-person sales. All of these were over the phone. And so I just got really good at remote sales in general. And so over the course of the year, I did every single sales call. Like, I outsourced none of it. The first 6 months I was doing, like, on average, like 14 to 16 calls. And then for the next 6 months, I hired 2 salespeople, and like the getting somebody else to sell something for you. I remember their first week, they ended up closing like $6,000, and I was thrilled. And then I realized it cost me $7,000 to pay for everything. So what did I do? I turned up more spend. I was like, I got to make more money. And so I ended up just cranking it. And with each new sale, I lost money. And the plan was just to fulfill really hard, get people to buy supplements and stay. And I would just figure this out by like continuing to put money into it. And over the course of like the next few months of doing that, I accumulated like $120,000 in debt. I owed $8,000 to my friend. The only reason why I was able to keep the lights on is because I had a one-on-one personal training client who would pay me in cash every month. And without her, and we were actually doing remote Zoom personal training. And without her, I wouldn't have been able to like pay for anything, like anything. I also had a roommate, which helped, and I had super low rent, and I was like eating no food type thing. Like I lost a lot of weight, just for, like a lot of muscle, just because I couldn't afford chicken. And so that went on for a few months to the point of Christmas of 2021. Wow, yeah. Christmas of 2021. I drove out to my parents and I had no money. My mindset coach that I gave $60,000 to a mindset coach, he had sent me like $300 to go buy Christmas gifts because I didn't want to show up empty-handed. So I spent all $300 on Christmas gifts because I was like, you know, didn't want to appear weak. Like, you know, this guy who has a multi-million-dollar company and could not afford to get his brother and his parents a Christmas gift, or his girlfriend at the time. And so I spent the $300. I can't even remember what I bought. I think I went to like the drugstore and just got like chocolate bars and like a stuffed animal or something, because I was like so stressed that like the only store that was near me on Christmas, the only store that was open and near me on Christmas Eve was the drugstore. And I remember like staying up late Christmas Eve just trying to work and get money in the door. And I just couldn't do it. And so I spent all that money on Christmas gifts, and I was driving home. And I was in my 2007 Toyota Corolla, and I had maxed out credit cards. I had $110,000 in debt. I had $8,000 of my friend's money, and I just spent every dollar that this coach gave me on Christmas gifts. And my car was running low on gas. And I will never forget this moment, because nobody knew at the time. Nobody knew, other than my coach, nobody knew how bad things were. And he still charged me $60,000, but like, whatever. I don't blame him. So nobody knew how bad things were. And my car was running out of gas, and I pulled into the gas station, and I put gas in the car, and I walked inside. I was like, I have no way to pay for this. And so what I did is I took credit card points, I transferred them to cash, and then I sent that cash as a Venmo or e-transfer to the guy in line behind me, and I said, I need you to pay for my gas. And I remember walking back to my car, and I couldn't tell my partner at the time what had just happened and like where I'm at, because I didn't want to be embarrassed. And it was the most embarrassing and like hard moment I've ever felt in my life. Like even when I think back to like all the times that I had to start at zero, whether it was like a new sport, new business, like this was supposed to be the top, and it was just so like it was a $3 million company. And I just fucking did it so wrong. So I learned so much in doing that wrong. And I learned so much in that moment. And I learned so much about integrity and doing the right things over the course of those years that I was like, wow, okay, I got to go back to work and get a job. And so I applied for a bunch of sales jobs, because if there's anything that I can do, I can work. I was really, really having a hard time running a business at the time, but boy, oh boy, could I work. And so I applied for a bunch of jobs. I ended up getting a job with a man I'm super grateful to have been exposed to in my life, which is Todd Brown, who's like an excellent marketer. He runs the Top One Mastermind. And in him hiring me, I hopped in, and like the first month I ended up making like 18 grand. And I was like, why would I ever start a business? And so I remember it took me like 4 or 5 months to pay off debt. And I remember telling the sales manager at the time, he's like, why do you want the job? I was like, dude, I'm honestly just frustrated. Like, I've ran this business. I did a terrible job, and now I'm in a horrible position. I got to get myself out of it. I'm going to work as hard as I can to do it. And he really liked that. Obviously, he was from New Jersey. He liked a little bit of violence. So with that, he really gave me like a great opportunity. And so I wanted to thank him, and I didn't really know how. And I thought, well, wow, he probably would feel really good having known that he had an impact on getting me out of this position. And so the day that I was able to pay off all of my debt, I did it on the sales meeting. And I remember seeing like a small New Jersey Italian man with a little sprinkle of a tear. And it was a great moment for me, and I'm glad that I was able to share that moment with him. And so now over the course of those 4 months that I worked there, it was actually when Todd Brown was giving me one-on-one coaching for an hour a day. And you want to talk about a fucking mentor? Getting one-on-one coaching from Todd Brown for an hour a day. Like, I learned so much. So I got myself out of that position. I really understood like what an actual business looked like, because I just sat in on all the meetings. I had one-on-ones with Todd every day. And I really just understood what it looks like to like have a business and do it correctly. And everything started to make sense when I looked at like how the ops are run, how the finances run, how the fulfillment's run. And I was like, I just got to see how many things that I did so wrong. And how I was always just like so cash flow constrained. It was like just immediately learned a ton. Now, going from that company directly into my next opportunity, which was sales team development coaching, or sales team coaching, basically. So as an account manager for Closers.io, owned by Cole Gordon. And once again, like I just if there was people far more qualified than I was in terms of like skill and experience, but nobody was going to outwork me. Like, nobody. So Todd had paid Cole for like some sales team consulting. And so we had somebody who was an account manager who's now a really good friend of mine. And so I called him one night and I was like, dude, like, how do I do what you do? And he goes, well, we're not really hiring right now, but the guy that you would go to is this guy. And so that guy, I went to his Facebook, and he had on his Facebook page a post that said something to the effect of like, guys, I know sex is good, but like, have you guys had a Rice Krispie square lately? And so I sent him a message. I was like, dude, like, what a funny post. I'm from Canada. We actually have different types of Rice Krispie squares up here. I'd love to send you one. And he was like, oh, okay, interesting. So he sent me his address. And so I went to the store. I got some Rice Krispies. I came back home. I filmed a video. And on that video, I was just like, hey, look, like, here's where I'm at. I love working. I love consulting. I want to be part of this company. Like, let me work for you. I don't care what it is you want me to do. Like, I'll do it. And so I sent him that on like a QR code with the Rice Krispies. And I put like a little hook. And I was like, hey, like, here's a little video for you. I ironed my shirt and shaved my beard just for you. And so he watches it, I'm assuming. He watches the video and he texts me. He's like, hey, man, nice video. Like, let's talk. And then, so here I am, failed business, 4 months of sales experience, formally. And 3 days after sending the Rice Krispie squares, I have a one-on-one interview with Cole Gordon to talk about an account management position. And so I go to later find out that Cole didn't actually want to hire me. It was the other guy who did. And he like fought for me, which I will always be grateful for. And I was like, look, man, I would just dominate. Like, I will work so hard. I will learn so much. I will do anything that there is required in order to make you a ton of money. Like, I think I said on the interview, I was like, I'd love to make you $10 million. Really, really funny to like think about this now. And the position that they actually hired me on for was junior account manager. Really funny. because I never got a promotion to senior account manager, and they also never hired another account manager or another junior account manager. And so I will go down in history as the only ever junior account manager for that company. But the reason why they did it is, the guy was like, hey, look, like, I don't really want you working with like huge clients. And we have a ton of like these, newbie clients who it's like they don't really have an offer. They don't really have a business. They need a ton of help. I'm like, perfect, dude. Like, I will figure out how to make them money. Like, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. And so all of my first like 20 clients, I was just like figuring out the weirdest ways for them to make money. And so they would hop on. I'd be like, what's your business? They're like, I was hoping you could tell me. I was like, okay, great. Let's figure this out. I was like, what skills do you have? What can you do? What is this? I was like, okay. So I would structure offers for people, and then I would give them lists or I would help them create lists of people that they think that they could reach out to, and then reach out to those people. And so I ended up helping all these businesses make a ton of money. So my success rate for clients was like out of this world, because I just had a really good system for helping somebody with no offer, no experience, nothing. I had a really good system for helping them make money. And so they kept sending me all these people, and I kept just like getting them results, and then they would buy more stuff from us, and then they would buy salespeople, and then they would continue. And so by like month 4, I had a huge book of business from like renewals and then upsells and whatnot. So by month 4, I had that book of business, and I was making like 40, 50 grand a month at this point. And I just remember like my first 40 grand a month, 40 grand paycheck for the month. Like the CFO privately messaged me and it's like, hey, congrats. Like, that's a lot of money. And I was like, I remember in my head just being like, I'm not spending a single dollar of this. Like, I was so terrified. And so at that point, my expenses were like 4 grand Canadian. So for that entire year, I spent no money. Like, I still drove the Corolla. I didn't buy any shoes. Like, I would go to these events in like a t-shirt from Walmart and beat up pair of shoes, and like all the other people on the team would make fun of me. They're like, Steve, we see your paychecks. What are you doing? I was like, I don't want to lose any money ever again. Like, I was so afraid of being in a position that I had just recently been in at Christmas. I was like, no, like this money's going and I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to stack it. I have no money. Like, in my head, I had no money. And so I just kept that mindset, and I just ruthlessly was not spending anything. Like, I was unwilling to like do anything, honestly. So I just sat there and I just worked for that entire year. And in doing that, like, I would wake up at 5 a.m. I would work 3 hours. I would have an hour-long workout, and then I would do coaching calls for 12 hours. And I did that every day for a year and a half. Like, without fail, the same thing. And so if you do coaching, sales coaching every day for 12 to 14 hours a day, and in the morning you're also doing call reviews at like binge watch speed and onboarding forums and like reviewing offers, over the course of those 18 months, I ended up working with like 700 businesses. I oversaw like $130 million in sales that were like established from my efforts. I generated like 80 something referrals. Like, I was fucking on it. And so circle back to the first 4 months, we had our first in-person event. Once again, I showed up in like a $4 shirt, beat up shoes. Like, I was just unwilling to like drop any money to improve anything. I was like, this is what you get type of thing. I will just show up, and I will impress you with my like biceps and expertise more than anything. Actually, my biceps were small back then. I had big lats, basically. Whatever. What a useless point I just said. So at this event, I remember just like, so we had 3 really good speakers. One was a dude who was Cole's coach at the time. We also had another guy who has a huge SaaS company. And so I had the privilege to have like a speaker dinner with them, and I just sat there and I just listened. And I remember asking the one guy, so his whole thing was like coaching. So he had worked with Kobe Bryant, who worked with the owner of my company, and like he had this whole identity-based coaching. And so I asked him, I was like, dude, like, you are a phenomenal coach. What did you do to get better? And like 2 words that changed my life. He just goes, game tape. Like, what? He's like, I just watch game tape. I was like, what? He's like, I record all my calls and I just watch them. I just watch and see what I could do better and how I can improve and how I can say it better the next time. And did I get the message across and how did it impact people? I was like, that's fucking fascinating. Game tape. And when I had thought about it, through weightlifting, through CrossFit, through athletics, all I did was watch myself work out. Like, not in a weird way, but like to improve the movement. And so it's like you would do a movement, you would record it, you'd be like, oh, I gotta like bring my elbow this way or whatever. So I was like, obviously. And so from then on, and taking my income from like 40 grand a month to like 70 grand a month really just came down to like game tape review and like watching calls of me doing upsells, me doing onboarding calls, seeing if I could improve one word better. Basically, like self-assessment's like the mother of skill development, because you get to identify like what is working and what's not, and then just throw out the things that are not working and keep the things that are and do those things better. Crazy. And so that was the one takeaway that I had. So the second takeaway that I had, once again, this is like 4 months into the company. So this other guy who had the SaaS company, he was operating a big operation, like hundreds of employees at the time. And I asked him, I was like, look, man, here's where I'm at. Here's what I got going on. I want to make as much money as possible. And he just stops and he goes, people who work 10% more make 40% more money. I was like, come again? He's like, people who work 10% more make 40% more money. I was like, does that scale? He goes, of course. So I was like, if I work 100% more, I make 400% more money? He goes, yeah. I was like, oh my God. And so because I had a variable compensation structure, it's like, yeah, of course. And so I literally just worked 100% more than everybody else. Like I was working twice as much. And so I would do 5 a.m. till 8, and then I would work all the live long day, and then I'd also work weekends, and like I had no life outside of just getting really, really good at this. So in doing that, making that company and making the consulting companies that I had a decent amount of money, I got really good at it. Like I got really good at like, number one, figuring out how do I get new business owners, or how do I get people who have no business experience, how do I get them to make money? And then how do I get people who have no sales experience, how do I get them to make money? And then all these sales teams that are doing well, how do I get them to make more money? And then all these business owners that are doing well, how do I get them to make more money? And so I had like literally from like 0 to 1 in every category. And then I also had like from 8 to 10 in every other category. So it was really cool. So while I worked there, I actually wrote these numbers out so that I say them accurately. And so I consulted 673 business owners. I got a 9.37 NPS score, generated 84 referrals. This is the number I wanted. So in that time, I consulted 17 eight-figure companies. I coached. Oh yeah. So I kept track of the eight-figure companies, and I was keeping track of the seven-figure companies, and then I just stopped counting after 52. And because I was like, that kind of sweet spot of taking a company from like 30 grand to 100 grand, like I just know that path every time. Like if somebody's at like 30 grand a month, like I just know everything they need to do to get to 100. And it's like the hardest part, but like, and so like all you have to do is work. And like, in just accepting that, people can make that breakthrough like pretty quick. It basically just violence. And so that was like the whole mantra. It really hard to do, and like a lot of like intricacies, but like the overarching theme is like there's just a lot of work to do, but here's all the work that needs to be done, and then we would check in and I would hold them accountable to the work, etc. And so like that sweet spot of like 30 to 100 grand a month, like I can run that play with like my eyes closed kind of thing. And then my second favorite play is like the 250 a month to like $1 million a month, because like there it's really just about like really getting good at like hiring a sales manager and getting them good at the process. And a lot of people just do that part wrong. So I'll come back to this. But I ran that consulting part of Closers.io for a hot minute. I worked at. And I think did a very good job. Like I had a bunch of records, made the most money in the company, like pretty good stuff. Then moved into the mergers and acquisitions department, so they ended up launching that department, and then I was assigned 2 sales teams. I took one of them from zero, like literally $0, I took them to 550 grand a month within 3 months. Another one was at 90 grand a month. I took them from 90 grand to 370 grand in 3 months. Like, just popped down, worked my face off, got really good results. And then I had a huge misalignment with the dude at the company who was like, that I was reporting to. So there was somebody in between Cole and I. And yeah, it was just like the way that he wanted to run things and the way that I wanted to run things were two totally different ways. And I remember I got a voice note of him yelling at me on it was like a Friday. It was like a Friday at like 6 o'clock. And it was like a voice note of him like calling me weak and calling me a pussy. And I was like, wow, okay. So Monday, I was like, man, I've made you a lot of money and I prefer not to make people like you more money. And so I wish that we part ways. And so I ended up leaving that company just based off of that. Like, it wasn't just that one interaction. It was how he wanted to run the sales teams versus how I wanted to run the sales teams. And that one interaction, I was like, we're good. I'm okay. So I exited out of Closers.io completely offboarded, and then kind of hung out for a minute. And as I was working at Closers.io, I had outbounded a coach. And so when I speak of like the most influential people in my life, by far, like the first 2 teachers, incredible, like set me up for success. But like by far, like I'm a different human being because of Dr. Trevor Cashy, who I hired and outbounded. Well, I outbounded and I closed his sales guy on like letting me talk to him. Really funny. I've been working with him for the past like 2.5 years now. And I just remember looking at that or thinking back to like all the things that I had to learn the hard way and all the things that I know now. Because like in removing all the magic from the world, you have like you can make things very useful and very simple for a lot of people when you remove magic. And so now I work with him to remove magic from sales and make sales an actual skill. So as we worked together and as he consulted me, I applied a lot of what he was teaching me to my clients at Closers, and they were able to get great results. And then I moved on to running my own consulting offer. And then they were able to get great results from the things that the things that Dr. Cashy and I were working on together. Then from there, I was able to outbound a couple more sales teams, bring them on so that I was like a fractional sales manager for them. And implementing that has just been game changing for the company. Like we've not only been able to make more money for the company, but everybody's like culture and work experience has been improved because we do it through encouragement rather than we do it through praise rather than punishment, to say it like very simplistically. And so in building a sales team through praise rather than punishment, your salespeople actually make you more money. And so that's like the mantra that I wish to communicate to everybody. And so now I work with Dr. Cashy continuously on like how to improve sales teams, how to improve sales leadership, how to improve, how to get people their first client, etc. And so all very exciting stuff, and by far the most influential person in my life in terms of like just helping me see like what are the things that are the least amount of wrong in this world. And so in identifying the least wrong things, because nothing's inherently right, but like the least wrong solution provides you with a lot more utility than like magic in a bag of tricks. So now I work with the best coach in the world. I have had many coaches and mentors in the past, and I don't mean to speak ill of any of them. I just wish to communicate that like when you find the right one, you're a lifer. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful for that relationship. So after having left the Closers team in the mergers and acquisitions department, I partnered up with one additional sales team that I met through them. I've been running their sales team for the past 1.5 years. And honestly, like the owner of that company has just been like the best person to have in my life in terms of just like showing me what like life is about in terms of values and like what's important. And that man is Joshua Osborne. And so I will continue to work for Unified Growth as long as they will let me, as the impact that company has and that we've been having on the world has been very positive. And so the past 18 months has really been like me running that sales team. In addition to, I got hired from another couple other sales teams on a consulting basis. I've helped other companies scale their sales teams. I've done a bunch of consulting. I've kind of just been doing like odd jobs for people at this point. And in doing a lot of odd jobs and consulting and like really helping other people grow their companies, I've acquired 2 more recent like merger and acquisitions type companies. And so that's the intention behind scaling sales teams, is like building this out to be like a real company rather than like something that makes me money. And so in the position that I'm at now, I run 4 sales teams. I also released a product that helps people land their first online high ticket client. And that company that we launched, I sold on stage. There's a YouTube video of me like going through the presentation on that. I sold it on stage. I ended up collecting like 120 grand on stage within like minutes. It was kind of crazy. I remember writing this out. I was like, holy crap, I hope somebody buys the thing. Like, it's going to be really awkward if I have a room of 100 people and nobody gives me any money. Like, it's just going to be really weird. And so I was like, man, I really hope somebody buys it. And then I ended up getting like 33 customers within like minutes. It was really, really cool. Like, I've never seen it. It was a nice moment, to say the least. And so I really wanted to make sure that I did a great job for those new business owners, because like they're signing up to get like sales coaching on like landing their first client, scaling their sales organizations, etc. And in doing so, of people who have yet to land a client, there was about 25 of them. 17 of them landed their first client in that training, which is something I'm incredibly proud of. Probably the thing I'm most proud of for doing is like helping people land their first client in that capacity, because that was like all on me. I've had the leverage of like having, like when I was a consultant or when I sold other people's products, like I had the benefit of like their product being the backing, but this was like all me. And so the fact that there was that much reward and people got that good of a result, like it was nice, honestly. And like, not only that, but like people's communication in terms of like how the teachings have been like shaping their life has been really cool. And so not only has it helped people land their first client, but there was people have 4x their business in the past 12 weeks since joining the program. So really, really good stuff. I mean, ultimately, like, I'm really excited to release that to everybody, because like if you have a skill, but you don't know how to communicate that skill and use the right language to people, then like nobody pays for your skill. And so you end up just working for other people, because like you rely on other people to send you business. But if you have a skill, like a high valuable skill, and then you can communicate that skill to other people and get people to pay you directly rather than like they pay a company pays you, well, then you just get paid the minimum amount basically that is like profitable for the company. But if you have a high paying skill, then it just makes sense to skip the company element of it if you learn the method of sales. And so like I wish to like just help entrepreneurs or people who have skills have the language in order to communicate how their skill is valuable, so that they don't have to rely on businesses' marketing to generate them business. They know how to generate their own business. Kind of like basically like helping freelancers make more money. And the fact that I was able to do that to such a high success rate has been like eye-opening for me in terms of like, oh, like there's very few things that are required in order to make this work. It's just making sure that they're done in the right order. And it's not like I have any magic or anything. Like it's just reps of knowing exactly what it looks like to do it. And so in having done it like 150 times at this point, like I know what it takes for somebody to structure an offer to get people to say yes to, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. Yeah, like just me working hands-on with those business owners has been the past 3 months of my life. I actively work with partnership companies to help them scale their sales teams. I intend on taking 10 sales teams on, each to scale to like 10 to 15 million. I have a couple right now that I look to scale to 30 million over the next 5 years. And in doing so, I really just wish to grow like this movement, if you will, of like, or this like awareness level of like, you can run a sales team by or through praise rather than punishment. It's just like everybody and you can sell stuff by being like kind and humorous and like nice to people rather than like confusing them and like being a dick. I just wish for that to be what happens and the change that occurs and the principles that derive from that of like sales becoming like a skill rather than like a bag of tricks and just like being mean to people. Because I just disagree with that. And I think it just comes back to like my background of I was able to learn this while I was being nice to people. And I didn't have a ton of discipline and like growing up. And now that I do, I realize that like discipline and treating people like an asshole don't equate to each other. Like, you don't have to be an asshole to be disciplined. That just feels really obvious and that other people should know. And so, like, the sense of, like, I'm better than you because I do stuff feels weird, because it's like, if you had the same environment I did, you would do the same things. And so I just wish to communicate that, like, you can do the same stuff I do. I'm no better than anybody. Once again, like, look at this. And so and you know, a couple months ago, I started this whole branding thing, and it just felt so fake, because I was just like, yeah, look how much money I have, and like this fancy shirt with all my art in the back. Like, it's just so stupid. And so the purpose of the brand now is really, I know how to make money. I know that making money, making the world go round, and that a lot of people have high valuable skills that they make less than they could. If they learned the skill of sales, they would make more money. And getting paid more for the skills that you have requires you to do less work, so that you have two things. You have more money and you have more time. And with that more time, you can do things like contribute to the world, and, like, you know, or your family, or take up knitting, whatever. Like, if you want a scarf, whatever you wish to do with your time. Realistically, I just look at this of, like, if you own a business and you want my help in growing your sales team, we have options for that. If you are a salesperson and you would like to know how I've sold multiple 8 figures in sales without being a D-bag to people, I will teach you that. If you're an aspiring business owner and you would like to transition your skills into a higher paying operation. So if you have a job or you have a skill and you know you could be making money if you knew how to acquire customers, and you want help doing that, I have an option for that too. So as this video approaches probably somewhere close to an hour, I will tell you what all this has to do with you and why you should care about me, my story, my background, and how I intend to make, like, my 0 to 1 story, my lessons and, like, my failures, like, how I intend to make that all useful. I intend to find more people who had a similar upbringing to me, who look at the path of complete uselessness and they change their environment to allow them to contribute rather than consume. And I think that the best way to do that, in my opinion, is through learning a skill. And there's no better skill to learn than sales. It is the key to communication. There's nothing better for personal development than sales, because when you learn sales, you can then have the ability to start your own business, or you can sell other people for stuff. You can make as much money as you want to. It's a skill that most people can easily acquire, because the meta skills that are required for sales is you speak the same language as your prospect. Now, we will get some really weird stuff and figure out what language actually means in that context. But when you actually, like, look at what is required for sales, a pair of shoes aren't even required. I could probably sell something door knocking in bare feet. As long as you speak the language of your prospect and you have a way to take their money and make sure that they get the thing that they pay for, you have all the things that are required for sales. There we go. I should write that down. So here's where we're at. If you want to be a salesperson, I guaranteed, like, for real, can guarantee I will take somebody with no sales experience and I can get them to a 6-figure income in sales in 6 months. For sure. You just got to follow this channel. And realistically, I will show you how to help people buy stuff. If you're in sales and you want to get better at sales, then this channel is for you, because I will make sure that you sell the right things to the right people. If you're already in sales, there's an opportunity to sell things that will make you more money to the right people. I'll show you how to do that. If you run a sales team, then I will show you how to get your sales team to do more things that you want them to do and less things that you don't want them to do. If you want to be a business owner, I will show you how to land your first high-ticket client or your next one, and I will show you how to operate a business. And if you want help scaling your business, I will either do it for you or do it with you, where I will show you exactly how to do it for free on this YouTube channel. So obviously there will be things that you can pay for, but like for the most part, the thing that you're going to be paying for is feedback, coaching, implementation, but all the knowledge and whatnot is going to exist on this channel for free. And I wish for this to turn into something that will really help people and take all the lessons that I learned in my life, that I learned the really hard way, that like you really do have to, for anything that you say that you want, you really do have to align your actions to it, and to really be proud of yourself, to like stop hating yourself. It really just comes down to like making a promise and keeping it to yourself and doing that enough times that it matters. And I've been in a position now where it's like, I know how to make $1 million a year. And I know that I can teach anybody how to make 6 figures a year. Anybody. And I know that I can teach some people how to make $250,000 a year. I know that I can teach even fewer of those people how to make $500,000 a year. And I know I can teach even fewer of those people how to also make $1 million a year. It just depends on how much that person is willing to do, how much they're willing to learn. And I think because I had the willingness to learn, mainly I had deprivation of a situation that like caused me to change my behavior for the long term. I wish to be able to teach other people how to do that without needing the same level of deprivation that I went through. So either way, I think that if you would like to pay me money, there will definitely be options to do so. If you would like me to do things for you, there would also be options to do so. I have scalingsales.pro. That is my done with you and done for you sales management, where we train your sales team, recruit your sales team, make sure they get ramped up to KPI, and if it doesn't work, you don't pay. And then I also have Sales School, where I teach people how to become either an SDR and get into sales, basically how you can get a 6-figure income in 6 months. And then if you are already an SDR, how you can land a gig as a closer. And if you're already a closer, how you can get a gig as a sales manager or sales coach so that you can continue to scale your income. Or if you're a closer and you just want to move to a better opportunity, make an upwards movement to a different company where you can make more money, I will show you exactly how to do that. I also run a More Sales, which is exactly how to land your first high-ticket customer. And if that doesn't work for you, like if you work with me and you follow my system exactly, and you don't land your first customer, you also don't pay. And if you also don't land your next customer, you don't pay. And so I have, like, the reason why I can make these like offers, and the reason why like you're gonna see all of my offers having massive guarantees, is because I know, and one of my partners said this yesterday, it's I know all the yeah buts. Like I know all the excuses you will present. And I know every single variable that it takes in order to accomplish your first sale from 30 grand to 100 grand a month. I know everything that it takes to scale a team from 250 to $1 million a month. From getting to $1 million a month to $2.5 million a month, I've done twice. And so it's like, do I know every variable? No. But like, am I gonna really, really try to figure it out? Of course. So if you are interested in learning more about any of those operations, obviously there's gonna be links and bios with calls to action and whatnot. That's how the internet works. And if you would like to be part of my sales pipeline, get hired on one of my sales teams currently, we have that opportunity as well. So there's going to be plenty of ways for you in order to get part of this movement of making sales a real skill and treating salespeople like real people. So thank you very much for giving me your attention for the past 59 minutes. My editor will definitely edit some of this out. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Have an excellent day. I've been Steve.